No, I just wanted to say hello and welcome, and we're really excited to have you. And Jackie's told me all about all of you, and she's very excited for you. And if you do hospitals or Robinson or Vigil, I coordinate those, so you'll be hearing more from me. Otherwise, if you ever need anything, my door's open.
Oh, it really is, because I talk to her every single day. Danielle was asking me what's one of my stress relievers. I'm like, I talk to Lenny every single day, don't I?
Yes.
It makes coming to
Multiple
work
times. Thanks.
Yeah. She's a great supervisor, so we love you. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay.
And an even better friend.
Ask Deborah lots of questions.
Okay, next we
You
have
want me to go over there?
You can go wherever you want to.
I will,
have
because
your
I'll
little
be farther,
clicker right
farther
here.
away from.
The camera?
Yes.
Okay. This is Deborah. Deborah started off with Hospice of the Comforter in the volunteer department, believe it or not. So she has a wealth of knowledge of what I'm teaching you and what you're learning, as well as our role as volunteer coordinators. But she branched off and eventually became got her master's degree in social work, and that's what she does for our company now. So Deborah's going to take you through this presentation and kind of give you an insight as to what our social workers do.
Yes, and I don't know how to use this, and ask me all the questions that you
You just go left, right, every time you want to. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Hi. I know, and I'd be fine if I weren't being filmed right now. But anyhow, that's fine. Hi. Okay, so yes, I absolutely love being a social worker here. It's amazing, and it's wonderful working with the families and the team and with the patients, of course. And okay, so let's see what specifically we're going to do here. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a lot about what we do, and I don't know what you all know about social work in general, but it's different depending on where you're working or who you're working with. So this is unique, working with end of life. It's really special. Family dynamics are big, so we'll talk about that. Abuse and neglect, which is something that we're going to talk to you all about, just having an awareness, because you all are additional eyes and ears for our patients and families. So we just ask you all to look out for that too. We don't have a lot of that, but it does come up. So we just want you to know, be aware of it and know what to do if you think you're observing that. Hi, I'm Deborah, the social worker. Oh, no worries. So please, if you have any questions, just stop me and ask. So we all have master's degrees in social work. Some of us are licensed and some of us are not. And as I was sharing with Danielle before, we have a supervisor here who's able to provide support for licensure. We have to get 1,500 hours of supervision. So we get that here through that supervisor, and it's an hour a week. And then once we get licensed, we can do different things as well. Let's see. Okay. So one of the things we do here is case management. We meet families where they are at, and we meet all kinds of families and patients. So they're as different as all of us are, and just people outside in the community. So some people have a lot of resources, and some do not. Some have been through this sort of situation before, and some have not. So we want to help them and provide support to everybody who's involved. And there are various types of support that they might need. So sometimes it's financial or legal assistance that they might need. We work a lot with Medicaid with our families, and what's nice is when they come on to hospice, the Medicaid system is really cumbersome and arduous, and it's just unpleasant, but we can help make it a much more pleasant process, because we do a lot of the work for them. We just ask them to gather certain information for us, and then we take it from there, so they don't have to do that. We also work on advanced directives, which are really important, and we'll get into that a little bit more in depth in a little bit. Those include the healthcare proxy, the do not resuscitate order, living wills. Basically, we want to make sure that we know what our patients' desires are, if we can capture those, if they're still able to share those with us, because that's really important. That's what we want to support, is whatever they want happening, or whatever they want to happen. So we want to capture that. We help with community resources. We have people who have difficulty sometimes with housing. We have people who are homeless. We have people who need assistance with food. Sometimes we have spouses who become caregivers and they have to leave their job to care for their loved one. So we help them with resources like that. Sometimes people need to hire private duty care, so we provide those resources as well. We assist people with nursing home placement. Sometimes a patient will be at home, let's say with a spouse who really can't care for them. Sometimes that happens, that the level of care that's needed for the patient is just much greater than what the family can provide. So we help with nursing home placement. And then, of course, we do the assessment for abuse and neglect. Whoops. Like I said before, we come into contact with families who some have been through this situation or have experienced death before, and some have, this is the first time they experienced death. They could have experienced death maybe with a grandparent in the past, and now this is their spouse. So it's different. The different relationships make this situation different. And sometimes they've had, unfortunately, unpleasant experiences in the past, and so they're anxious about what this might be like. Sometimes in the past they've had wonderful experiences and they want to make sure that this is going to be the same. So we talk to them a lot, we educate them a lot about what the dying process is going to be like, because a lot of times people will say, well, what's going to happen? They just have no idea. So we can talk to them about the signs and symptoms, about the trajectory of the disease process, like Alzheimer's maybe, for example, and then we can also educate them about what it's like the last hours, the last days. Oftentimes, for example, one thing that might be of concern to a family is they're not eating or drinking anymore, and the family really wants them to eat or drink. But we explain to them a lot of times at the end of life, the process is that the body doesn't want that anymore. So we educate them so that they feel comfortable about the fact that that's not happening, and they also know that they don't need to force the patient or their loved one to do something that might not be good for them. Also, on the flip side of that, sometimes we have people, let's say, who have swallowing difficulties. I just have a story. I had a gentleman that I saw who, he really wanted Pepsi. That's all he wanted was Pepsi. And at this point, he was taking liquids that were thickened. So Pepsi is not a thickened liquid. So they add thickener, which is, I don't know if you all have seen this, but it's viscous. They add that to everything, and he didn't want thickener in his Pepsi. So I said, well, it's up to you. You know what your risks are. He was alert and oriented. You may choke. You could get aspiration pneumonia, but ultimately the decision is yours. And he wanted his Pepsi, and he had it without the thickener, and he was very happy. He was at the end of life anyhow, and that was a choice that he wanted to make. So we want them to be happy and enjoy the things that bring them pleasure in life, and as long as they know the risks, that's their decision to make. Anticipatory grief, that's pretty much, particularly we see with some of our patients who are sick for a long time. Patients decline, so the family gets ready for the patient to die, and then the patient gets better. And so the family kind of relaxes, and then the patient starts to go back down, and so the family gets really anxious, and the more that this happens, the more anxious that the family tends to get, because they're increasingly tired, their self-care has decreased greatly because they continue to want to be there because they think this moment is happening. So we try to address those sorts of issues. One issue that comes up a lot for me is family members will say that they want to be at the bedside at the time of death. And sometimes that just does not happen. And it doesn't matter, not that it doesn't matter that it's the wish of the family, but if what the wish of the patient is that the family member not be there, then chances are the family member's just not going to be there. And sometimes the person will wait for the family member to go to the restroom or get a cup of coffee. And a lot of family members don't know that, and they feel some relief because otherwise they feel a lot of guilt that they weren't present when they felt like that's where they needed to be. So we review those sorts of things. The idea is to try to anticipate anything that might cause anxiety, or also to explore what is life going to be like after you lose your loved one. Because if this person has spent all their spare time at the bedside of their loved one, or this is the person that they shared their bed with, and now this person dies, now what's that going to be like to be in that bed, or to be in the same situations but without that person? General support of the patient and family. We also, we have some large families, and we want to provide support to the patient individually, so whatever they need. So sometimes I'll talk to the patient without the family, because the patient might have needs that they don't want the family to know about. And then the family oftentimes has needs. Sometimes there are things that are left unsaid or undone that need to be attended to. So we want to provide them with support. And then, of course, they all have lives, so they might be working and need some help with paperwork to support them not losing their jobs. Or there might be children involved, so we get our bereavement department involved to work with the children so they know what's to come. And then, of course, at the end, there's final arrangements. So we try to work with them to get final arrangements made prior to the patient's death, because that's a time that's really sensitive and difficult, and it would be really nice for the family to just be able to grieve and not have to worry about sales pitches from all the different funeral homes. I mean, it does come down to dollars and cents sometimes, and families will say, I don't have a lot of money to pay for cremation or whatever, and it's just a very vulnerable time. So we try to address that ahead of time. I imagine that you've already been told about the interdisciplinary team meeting, or team meetings, maybe? Okay. So the social workers also attend the team meeting, and we bring different information to the table sometimes. Our clinical observations about cognition, mood, and decline. It's interesting, sometimes our patients physically will stay in the same state for a while, but cognitively we can really see a decline. And that's important for multiple reasons. One is for safety, and one is also we have to justify why the person still is appropriate to stay on hospice. And when there is decline, we need to make sure that we're addressing that, making sure that those needs are met, and that also Medicare is aware of that's part of their continued decline. We share family dynamics on a need-to-know basis at the table, and a lot of times it changes what people are looking at when they're thinking about a family. Sometimes people will say, maybe, why is it, this person has 5 children, why don't children visit? Well, maybe if you know a little bit more about the family's history, sometimes that gives us information to understand why the 5 children aren't visiting. So sometimes there's information there. As I said, environment and safety we're looking for. We want to make sure that everybody at the table has all of the same, as much of the same information as possible, so we can best serve the patient and the family. And I work primarily in facilities, so we also want to make sure that we're serving the facility and having their needs met as well. Okay. And then sometimes right there it says coordination of services or joint visits. What's fun sometimes is we'll have, maybe the nurse will go with the patient and I'll go with the family. And sometimes that's because the nurse can't get to the patient on their own. And sometimes that's because there's some things that need to be discussed that are difficult to discuss when everybody's together. So we'll do that. Also, sometimes there are safety issues. So if that's the case, then we would go together as well. And safety issues might be a neighborhood that people might feel uncomfortable in or something like that, so we'll go out together, or we've heard there are firearms in the house or something like that. We just want to assess it together. Okay, so we talked about support of the family. The caregivers really, we try to focus so much on them taking care of themselves. They really are stressed between having to maintain jobs and their own families and sometimes their own health and the health of a spouse. There's a lot going on, and a lot of times the caregiver forgets all of that. They're really fatigued. They're not taking care of themselves, so we try to encourage them to do that. Of course, we want to reduce conflict. Sometimes we have siblings with conflicts, so we want to work that out. A lot of times I find patients will wait to know that their children are on speaking terms or what have you, so we try to work some of that out if we can, particularly if the patient can let us know ahead of time that that's a concern for them. We want them to stay in communication with each other and with us, and of course we help them with decision making. It's really hard to sign a do not resuscitate order, and a lot of people will say that's the hardest thing I've had to do and I just don't want to do it. But it's the difference between a person being resuscitated and maybe having to live in a worse state that they were in before, and the patient dying and maybe being in peace. And a lot of times it's really hard for a family member to make that decision. They don't want to have to make those decisions. So hopefully our patients can make them ahead of time. Education, we do a lot of education. Again, about nutrition and hydration at the end of life. A lot of times people don't want food and water, and that's okay. But sometimes culturally that doesn't match with what a family's culture is, and so it's hard to explain to a family who feels that it's very important to feed that that might not actually be helping the patient, that might be hurting them, and if they don't want it, it's okay not to give it to them. So we try to help them find alternate ways to show love that aren't through food. Again, we talk to them about the signs and symptoms of the dying process, and then we teach them some coping skills. We have some of our patients are in memory care, and their families sometimes will feel like they need to go visit them every day, and one of the coping skills sometimes is not to go visit them every single day, because it's really hard to see the person that you love, who for 8 years now doesn't necessarily remember who you are, and you don't necessarily have to be there every day, and that's okay. So we try to normalize that for them and help them get through that. Some of the therapeutic skills that we bring, Danielle, would be a therapeutic presence, and part of that's just being there to listen, encourage, normalize what they're feeling. You know what, this is what, I encounter people a lot of times with a family member who has Alzheimer's, and they think that they're the only person dealing with this, and they don't realize that there's a whole community in Central Florida of people who are dealing with this, and who can provide support and help that person maybe not feel so isolated. We do a lot of life review. Tell me your story, tell me how you met your spouse, that type of thing. What about the things that you achieved that were so wonderful in your life? Because this is a time, a lot of times, that people get really heavy, and they forget all of the beautiful things that their life has been. You know, so it's a good time to go through those things. For the patient, just to remember that all of the things that they've achieved, all of the people they've touched, all of the impact they've had on other people's lives is a really beautiful thing for them to realize. And then for the family to realize that, yes, your loved one is here and they're declining and dying, but there's so much more to them and to your relationship, so let's not forget that. Crisis intervention. Sometimes our patients take a long time to die, and sometimes these things happen really, really fast. And sometimes the families just aren't prepared for that, and they'll say, I didn't think this was going to happen yet. I thought I had time for this. I thought I had time for that. So we want to get in and help the families with that, but also help the patients with whatever they might need to make sure that they're tended to in a crisis. And then, of course, suicide assessment, intervention, and referral. We have some patients who will say, I just don't want to live anymore. And we take that really seriously. We need to find out if we have to assess them, find out if they have a means to hurt themselves, what their thoughts are. A lot of people will say, I'm just ready to die. And that's fine. Okay. But there's a difference between I'm ready to die and I have a gun and I have a plan. So that's something that we definitely pay attention to. So if you all are out with patients ever and you hear them say anything like that, please call your coordinator right away and let them know so that we can follow up with them. It's interesting who they say different things to. So a lot of patients will tell me upset their nurse, or they're working their nurse too hard, or whatever thing they might think they're going to do. So we all work together, and you all are part of the team. So sometimes we have volunteers come to our interdisciplinary team meetings. They want to talk about their patient, and we welcome that. So you all are part of our team. We're all a team together. Okay, so we do start where the patient and family are. Everybody, like I said from the beginning, is in a different place about how this goes. So we want to meet them where they are. We don't have any expectations that they have certain education or understanding. We just want to meet them where they are and try to help them through the process. Not everyone can be a caregiver, and that's really interesting. As far as spouses and things, sometimes people will come in and they say, well, you know, they have children, why can't their children take care of them? Or why can't their spouse take care of them? Some people, that's just not their strength. And it's better that they notice that that's not their strength so that we can find alternate ways of having care provided for the patient. So that's a really good thing if somebody can identify that instead of trying to cover that up and then the patient doesn't necessarily get the care that they need. We teach them about boundaries, and we try to maintain appropriate boundaries. We want to help them, but we also want to empower them. We don't want to take away their power and have them feel like they have to be dependent upon us. This is a really hard time, and it's good that they do feel like they are strong and able to get through. So we're here for them, but we want them to be able to feel powerful as well through this whole process. One of the things that we ask sometimes if a family gets really, really dependent is we'll say, well, or if we can't do something for them maybe, we'll say, well, what did they do before we were involved with them? How would they have handled this? So it's okay that we can't solve everything. We'll work on it and we'll try to figure it out together. And then, of course, understanding that every family is different, and it doesn't matter that part of my family is Latino. It doesn't matter when I come to meet another Latino family that they say we're Latino. That could be different for everybody. So we try to meet them where they are at. We ask them what their rules are, what are their norms, and that's what we want to work within those boundaries. Okay, advanced directive. This is probably where my passion is. What we would hope is while somebody is still alert and oriented and able to make their own decisions, that they're able to do these sorts of things. And these are sorts of things, not necessarily a do not resuscitate order, but some of these are things that we can do now, all of us. A living will is us saying whether or not we want alternate methods. Do we want a feeding tube? Do we want, what do we want? And it's an opportunity to put that down on paper. And the beautiful gift that is, if a patient is able to do that, is that their family then doesn't have to feel the stress of trying to make that decision for them. What would my mom have wanted? I'm not really sure. And even worse, if you have 4 siblings and they all want to do different things. One wants a feeding tube, one insists absolutely not. And mom never would have wanted that. Yes, she would have. That's a really difficult thing for a family to go through at such a tender time. So we try to get that down ahead of time if we can. Healthcare surrogate is what a patient can put into place. If a patient is alert and oriented to person, place, and time, so that assessment has to be done first, then they can decide who their healthcare surrogate will be. If they want to choose their neighbor, that's their right to choose their neighbor. So they can choose whoever they want to make their healthcare decisions. And we would put that in writing for them. They can also designate a healthcare power of attorney. There are different types of power of attorney. One is financial and one is for healthcare. A lot of our people have it for finances, but they don't have it for healthcare. So it's a little bit more involved than just a healthcare surrogate. But again, it's the patient designating who they want to make the decisions for them. If the patient is not alert and oriented and they can't make those decisions, then what we have to do is a healthcare proxy. And what that is we go down a list. First, if they have a legal guardian, then that's their decision maker. If not, do they have a spouse? If they have a spouse who's alert and oriented and able to make decisions and wants to do it, then they can do it. If not, then we go to the children. And then if there are multiple children, we have to get the children on the same page about who's going to make those decisions. And that can be kind of hairy. So hopefully we can get some of these things taken care of ahead of time. The more children they are, the more the more difficult it becomes to pick one decision maker. So if families can do this ahead of time, our patients, it's a wonderful thing. And then we also work with them on do not resuscitate orders. And what those are, you'll see yellow pieces of paper, goldenrod pieces of paper, and what it is that it just says do not resuscitate, and it's the patient, if the patient's able, or if not, their healthcare decision maker saying, should God forbid their heart stop beating, do they want to be resuscitated? And it's up to them. If if it's in a home, those are usually posted somewhere. If an ambulance is called, then they will, when they go out, if they don't see that DNR on that piece of paper, then they're required by law to administer CPR. So we do encourage people to do what's comfortable for them. Maybe they don't want to have one, and that is fine and dandy. But we just let them know also if you don't have one and a person is resuscitated, this might be what it looks like afterwards. So just be aware so you're making an educated decision, but it's their choice to make. Okay, abuse and neglect, and there was something in particular that I wanted to make sure. Again, if you see anything that you think is abuse and neglect, please call your volunteer coordinator who's going to get the rest of us involved. We are, as healthcare professionals, we are mandated reporters, which means by law I have to report. If I don't, I'll lose my job, and I can lose my job and I can lose my license. But most importantly is the patient needs to be advocated for, and that's what I do here, is I advocate for my patients. So if I suspect any abuse or neglect of any kind, I have to call DCF, the Department of Children and Families. So let your volunteer coordinator know, and they'll let us know, and we'll look into that. And just so you know how that works, when we call, We give them the information and they decide whether or not they're going to take the report. It's not our job to provide any kind of proof, so you don't have to have any kind of proof. If you go in and you say, you know, this person, their mouth is really dry and they didn't have any water and nobody's offered them anything, and they told me that they're never given any water, something like that, or if it just looks like something's not quite right, just call your coordinator, okay? And we'll definitely look into it. Some signs of physical abuse would be hitting, kicking, shoving, exposure to the elements. We've had patients before, and I don't know exactly why this happens, but maybe they're in the hospital bed that's in the living room, and maybe they don't have any clothes on and all they have is a sheet on them. And that's kind of a dignity issue. We would definitely, you know, address that with the family. But we'd also want to make sure that the person was being taken care of. Sometimes they'll say, well, you know, we didn't have clothes that fit them or something. Okay, well then let's look into getting some clothes that fit them, but we want them to be taken care of. So you might see somebody who, yeah, if you ever saw anybody who was tied to anything like that, then we would definitely want you to let us know. Anything that you have any questions about, just call your coordinator and we'll definitely address it. It's better to be safe than sorry. If they tell you, my loved one has told me that they're going to hurt me or they're going to punish me or this is what they've done, they put me in the room and they don't let me come out, those sorts of things, we would want to know. We don't have a lot of this, but if it comes up, just so you're aware, you would need to call your coordinator and let them know. If they tell you, oh yeah, I leave them alone in the home and then I go to work for the day and the person can't get out of bed, that's a problem. If there's a fire or something like that, there's no safety for that. And also if they're sitting in a soiled brief all day, that's not good for their skin breakdown, wounds, all that kind of stuff. So they need to have care, and we address that with families all the time. We'll talk to them maybe about hiring a caregiver. Do you have a church family who could provide support? Could your family maybe take shifts? What can you do? But I need to hurry, right?
You're done, you've only got one more
Okay.
slide.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Neglect, they won't give me, they don't feed me, they won't give me my medication, things like that. We need to know about that. Again, if things like privacy and respect, our patients are people, and they deserve everything that somebody who is not ill deserves. They deserve respect and privacy and freedom to make decisions and to be taken care of the best that's possible. So if you have any concerns that those things aren't happening, just please let us know. So it is very different depending on who we're working with and what's going on for them, and that might change from day to day with the same family. We are a vital part of the team. And what's interesting too with that IDG meeting, what's really neat is sometimes we'll have, like, the chaplain will come in and say, did you see that the person has a new scratch on their arm? And then the nurse will say, I understand that the son isn't talking with the mother. And so those wouldn't necessarily be something that you would expect in their role, but since we're all sitting together and we're all working together, everybody brings that to the table, and then we can all address those issues. So we're in contact with each other all the time anyhow by phone, but this is a good time for everybody, all the disciplines, to sit together with the physician and make sure everything is addressed. And yes, we're all responsible for noticing all of the different concerns. So if I see a scrape or something like that, I have to say something. So I know that's a lot. Do you all have any questions? Concerns?
How often do you deal with dementia in your older patients? Is it
Me personally, all the time.
percentage-wise?
Every day.
Huge percentage?
Every day. A lot of my people have dementia, yes.
And Deborah's in facilities.
Right, yes.
That's where
So I go into a lot of
that's what her
secured
team
units.
is.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So that makes it really hard to care for them because you don't know what their issues are, what their desires are a lot of times, I would think.
Well, you know, to a certain extent, yes. But equally, they're people, and I'm a person going in, and I can hold their hand, I can stroke their hair, I can assess them. I do still have people who will say things, and what's really interesting is some of my patients that have dementia, they'll focus on something, and maybe they might be a little bit more, I don't necessarily want to say honest, but they'll talk about something that maybe if they didn't have dementia, they would be more private about. So it helps me to be able to address that sort of thing. So I'll have people who might talk about my son who died, my son who died, my son who died. Okay, well obviously that's a concern for them, and they might be confused, but that's something that they perseverate on, that's something that's in their mind. So it lets me know that that's something that I want to address. I want to talk to the family, find out what happened, and see if there's anything we can do to provide some comfort and soothing. So I also use music a lot with my patients with dementia. So there's
It's
been
like magic.
It is, yeah. There's been research that shows that if you play the music that the patient specifically liked, and none of my patients want headphones, which is fine, but I will. That's the way they suggest to do it. I'll play it on the phone, and it's interesting, kind of the clarity that will come into people's eyes, and sometimes I can have a few moments of a more clear person. So.
Calmer too, right?
Could be, yep, yep. But a lot of my patients with dementia are really calm and super pleasant. We don't have a lot, I don't think, right now with dementia who have behavioral disturbances. And usually if we do have somebody who has behavioral disturbances, we want to address those and find out why they have those. Are they uncomfortable? Are they in pain? Is there something spiritually or psychologically going on that we can address? And a lot of times there's something that can be addressed and those behaviors can be better managed.
Kathy, you had a question.
Once a patient gets in the facilities and you start that whole routine, and I went through with both my parents, but someone asked the other day about something, regrets or whatever, and the only thing is I wish that hospice, what I've learned here is I wish hospice could have been involved earlier, because I think it would have helped the family, it would have helped the understanding, the treatment of the parent, of everybody. So at what criteria, like, did a doctor have to say, like, I don't know why we didn't ask for hospice earlier. Is there criteria that that wasn't being met? Or?
There are certain criteria, but what happens is the doctor, let's say the nurse says, I think this person would be a good candidate for hospice care. Then the doctor has to agree to that. For a referral to be made, and then we follow up with that. But I think a lot of times the reason that doesn't happen is because there's a big misconception that hospice is end of life, just end of life. It's there to help this person die, and we're here for so much more. And the longer we can be involved with the family, the better usually the process is, because the patient can usually have better care because we have a little bit longer to manage symptoms. So they're usually comfortable for a little bit longer. And then the family also can kind of settle into all of this, and we can help the family with any psychosocial, financial, whatever kind of needs that might exist, instead of trying to cram it all in at the end.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times it's either, maybe there needs to be more education about what hospice really is about, because it's not just about the patient at the end of life dying. It's about the whole system
I think
that surrounds
there's
it.
this conception of, well, we're not ready for hospice.
Right.
They're not ready for hospice.
Right.
The heck they weren't.
Right.
And it would have helped
Right.
with everything, with the Medicare,
Yes.
with everything.
Yeah.
It would have helped a lot. But, we learned a lot. It was what it was.
Right.
But
But now you're a voice and an advocate for all of these other people out there to know what hospice can do.
Yeah.
And that hospice doesn't have to be at the last minute. Yeah, so if there's anybody who's ever interested in hospice, they can call their physician and say that they are, or they can call us, and referrals would follow up with the physician and with the family and talk to them to see if it's an appropriate fit. And there are certain criteria, but they would talk to them about that, and if they meet the criteria, then they come on. And I will tell you, we have people who, maybe they're in the hospital, and they're in a little bit more of a crisis kind of situation, they meet criteria, they go back to the home or the facility, we get everything managed, and the patient's at a plateau for a long time. So what will happen sometimes is we discharge them at that point, and then they'll start to decline, and we come back in. So it's not a problem.
because I thought if the doctors weren't saying, oh, they have so
Right.
much to live because of they couldn't say
Right.
6 months.
Right,
Or
right.
whatever. Maybe
But
but
also-
that wouldn't be it.
Right, well, but also, doctors a lot of times are conditioned to try to fix and to help in that way. So a lot of times hospice means giving up because we don't pursue aggressive treatments. So, so sometimes doctors, if they haven't worked a lot with hospice, maybe they want to try this or they want to try that.
So find a hospice physician, somebody that
Maybe
understands
somebody
what
who's
hospice
comfortable
is more about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it was all good experience and an experience, but,
right.
yeah.
Maybe there was a little bit more available for you. Yeah, yeah,
Well, just in the understanding of it,
sure,
the treatment of family and patients and all that stuff.
sure.
Can I ask a question? What did you used to do when you volunteered?
I didn't volunteer, I was a
Oh.
volunteer coordinator.
Oh, coordinator. Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
so I connected my volunteers with my
Oh,
patients
nice.
in facilities and homes.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Did you, what did you like about that job?
I love talking to the families. You tell me time.
No,
I
I'm
love
getting ready for the
okay.
next.
I love talking with families. I adore talking with patients, and I love my volunteers. I still see them in here all the time. I love my volunteers. Love them because I get to know them as people, and they got to know me as a person, and it's neat to just kind of go through their lives with them, you know. So
Till the hours.
I call them and they're like, oh, great, you must be going somewhere, have a nice time. They're very kind about it when you can't make a night. It's not like that, oh my God, you were off twice last year, you know. And so, I mean, it's just, they're so appreciative of the volunteers here. I've had also the pleasure of going to a memorial service, which they have once a year for those that have died. Families come, and I got a rose for Don last time. And I've also gone and sat where we're soliciting sort of volunteers, you know.
Yeah, when I say that I put on events and I need volunteers to go sit and talk
Right.
about hospice.
We'll get a text from Jackie, and if we can do it, we do it. So I've had a little touch of all that, and I just got my own shirt about a week ago. I'm really proud of that.
Woohoo!
And,
Rosemary just got a new name
Yeah, so
tag.
but it's really, when people ask me, the only thing I'll end with this, when they say, well, do you really enjoy doing what you do? I says, I don't know if I enjoy it, but I feel good when I leave. You know, so I guess that's, nobody likes to enjoy knowing that their life's gonna end, but then again, some of those people are in a better position we are, they're going up there, you know, we're left behind. So it's very rewarding, and I can't say enough about it, that it's been a real experience, and Jackie laid it out for us. I mean, everything she's talked about, your experience, you can pick any path you want to go, but I picked that path because that's where my heart was for most of the time. 100-year-old aunt, it's a nun, at a 100-year-old birthday party, so I went up there, so
Oh,
maybe I'll
nice.
catch some of her genes, you know.
Nice. Okay, class, it is your turn. Questions, please.
Well, I have to say that I'm honestly are relieved by some of the things you guys have said. It sounds like, you know, they've really worked with you guys, like as far as like your schedules going, and I know you're a student, so that was like one of the things I was like concerned about, so that's good to hear. They like really try to work with you, so that's nice. You said you do vigil, like what is that exactly? I'm sorry.
It's keeping them company until they die.
Oh.
They pass. I'm sorry. I have
Yeah.
to get
Say
used
that
to
D
saying
word,
pass.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's pretty much just sitting there with them, because when I get called, I'm assuming hospice gets a call to say, this person has 24 hours, maybe 48, I don't know, they don't know. But if they have family or don't have family, they ask that you just go in and sit with them until, if the family's there. I've had one where the family was there and then they left, you know, but then they're so happy to know that their loved one will not be alone. And as I said, I do nights, so they're happier at night because they can go home and sleep for a little bit or something. So, but yeah, so you just sit there, keep them company until.
Awesome. So, what made you guys all choose what you chose for, like, as far as volunteering, like, the area you guys chose?
For me, quite frankly, I am hoping, I came into hospice because my son was working from home day as a student too, just doing administrative stuff. And I went by the library and I saw a sign, hospice volunteers meeting. I thought, if my son can do administrative stuff at hospice, I can work there, right? And that's what brought me in, and I did the classes, and I thought, so I started because I had time, so I started as taking a patient to the doctor or whatever it is that they required.
And that was when we were allowed to do that.
Right, yeah.
All's changed since then.
See, so, and then I thought, okay, what other areas do you have? I want to do that. And so when the original portion came, I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. There's one other thing I want to do, by the way. They have a memories portion that they actually, you do a memory book for them, you write down your memories.
That's
and-
me, darling.
That's you?
That's me.
Okay, I'm gonna do that one too. I started it sometime like that. So that's what it is. For
And you
me,
can
it's
switch
where
it up,
the
too.
need is. So, yeah.
You can switch it up. I have a volunteer who got bored with one thing and they said, what can I do next? I don't want to do this anymore. So there's so many opportunities.
Just don't ask me to cook or bake or bring cookies. We're done.
I'm with you.
That's Wendy's job.
Yeah, somebody's got that all covered.
Wendy had that covered for us.
So we're good, but that's what it is.
How about you guys? What got you into volunteering?
Well, I did it for my buddy.
Yeah, but I mean the area you chose.
Well, I just thought about where he died, and I knew what went on there, and I figured, let me start there, and see if it's, something that I want to expand on. They'll call you with some other opportunities, and if you say no, you just say no, but I started there, and then I've always been good at visiting nursing homes. I've had a lot of family in nursing homes. That didn't bother me. I've never done the home stuff yet, because I don't know if the home stuff would be for me, So, yeah, I started where I was most impressed with it. It's growing from there.
Nick, why'd you choose homes?
So I actually had a family member who had a caretaker in homes, and I know how much it meant to her to be in her own home in the comfort. She had her chair she loved so much, and just wanted to kind of be surrounded by all the sentimental things she had. And that was part of the reason why I went to homes, and part of the reason was also for convenience for me. UCF's kind of a far drive from here, especially with the traffic. It takes me like almost an hour to get here. So there's regions that volunteer coordinators have. So if you just tell them, hey, I want to stay 15 minutes around campus, if she has a call from somebody, it's right there. So that's been very convenient for me.
And the tough thing is, really, you guys probably see a little bit more than I do, because if I'm not here till next Thursday, most of those people won't be there, but sometimes they'll be there 2 or 3 weeks. And then you develop these relationships as a family, and you realize you'll never see them again. And that's hard. It's never see them again. So you see it more than I do.
Yeah, I was just, Nick, when you were talking, I was thinking about that one, you're a UCF student and you're in med school. And one, I was thinking how wonderful you are going to be as a doctor, probably because of this experience. Has it changed? I don't know what field you want to go into, but do you think this experience what will it bring to you as a doctor?
Well, I mean, one thing you hear all the time is bedside manner of physicians is just terrible. And I think that's a past thing, because now it's one of the main things medical schools look for. I mean, I think, I don't know what the average time a doctor spends in a room, but I've shadowed a lot of them, and it's looking at reports and tests, and not a lot of actually talking about a patient, because there can be a lot of underlying things that can almost be, if you address those or just listen to them, can help a lot for a patient. I think that's one thing that this has definitely taught me how to do, and because that's not a skill you just build overnight, to really truly listen to somebody and kind of read between the tea leaves and figure out, well, maybe something else is going on, and I think that's kind of an extremely important thing now.
Well, finish med school, because we need a hospice. I might need a hospice doctor.
That's right, yeah. I hope we'll be around here.
Well, I just want to thank all of you so much. It's so inspirational to hear your stories, and it is a lot of comfort to hear that you all have lived through it, because sometimes it's kind of daunting to think of starting. But I wonder if you had any times where you panicked with the patient having some kind of medical issue. Been any problems like that?
I haven't had, I don't know that you call it a panic mode, but sometimes when you go to a home and you're told that this patient is bedbound, but they may sporadically get up or try to get up, and you know you're a volunteer, you're not supposed to, even if you know how, you're not supposed to do that. So I had a patient, she was supposed to be sitting in her chair, and she was supposed to be sitting in her chair until the person came back. And she decided to get up. Now, what do? Do you guide them gently back to the chair, or do you reprimand her, sit down? You just kind of have to go with what's happening at the moment, especially if they have dementia or something, because they just do it. They're used to getting to go to the bathroom or something. So I've had it a couple times, and it worked out. No harm was done. So, but yes, you kind of work with that moment. and
What did you
person.
do, for
You
example?
guide them back. Well, that person wanted to go to the bathroom, so she really didn't go. But it was just that natural wanting to get up to go. So I just kind of guided her and held her because she's not balancing, so I have to balance with her. And then just gently walk her to where her steps went, and then guided her back. And she sat down as if nothing happened. When her caretaker, when her daughter came, I said, "This is what she did." She said, I told her. And I'm thinking, yeah, you could have told me too. I didn't spoil anything. We're fine. And, you know, it's how it is. So.
I had another volunteer who, the family actually had a whiteboard, and they wrote on the whiteboard, "Stay in your chair." So anytime that person tried to get up, the patient tried to get up, he would go get the whiteboard and say, "Here, read." And that worked for him.
It worked.
So I don't know, yeah, whatever works.
The guy I see once a week, you gotta be careful to stay within the limits like they talk about with all this fitness stuff. But I went to see him, he needed a haircut bad. So I went and asked the dermatologist, she says, "Can he get his haircut?" Because he has no visitors, this guy. His son's in Canada, his wife is divorced. And she said, "Yeah." So she looked up his account, "You've got money." I was gonna pay, but they said, "Don't do that. Don't pay for the haircut." But, so then I went back the next week and he still didn't have his haircut. So then I asked again, and then I finally called it here, and I got them involved, and they were gonna send, we have a girl or somebody that cuts hair, and then somebody finally got to him the next week. So sometimes it's sad to see that, you know, because they have no visitors, nobody says nothing. And then over here, I've never had nervous points, but the worst thing about this job is if you're at the front desk and someone has passed, and just right after that someone comes in to see them, you've got to tell them, "Oh, would you mind having a seat?" You can't tell them the person expired. You have to go get the nurse to tell them because HIPAA doesn't allow us to tell them. So they almost feel like, and then when they find out about it, you almost feel like they're going to look at you and say, "You scumbag." But they're very kind about it, you know, you can't tell them that. That's a little bit of a nervous time, you know. So, and sometimes you get some family members that get a little bit out of hand, a little bit, you know, not real bad, but emotional. So the best is to call in and talk to somebody and they'll take care of it. Sometimes you can't help but stick your nose in a little bit. You know. I'm sure I broke a few rules, but you know.
Surprise.
I haven't really had, honestly, I've been very lucky to not really have any medical emergencies or anything kind of spontaneous happen like that. I've had one patient before who had a neurodegenerative disease and couldn't really communicate very well, and he kept asking me, I'm pretty sure he was asking me to grab his cigarettes to give him, and he kept telling me to go into the closet and or look somewhere in the closet, and I said I can't find him, and I'd sit back down and he'd ask me to go do him again, to find him again. And it went on for like 45 minutes, and what ended up happening was his partner had moved the cigarettes somewhere else because he knew he was going to ask for them. I was like, I don't know what to do. So I kind of, you know, kept talking about something else and just kind of diverted the situation. But that was about the most stressful I've been in.
Exercise for you.
Yeah.
They bring animals next door a lot, you know. This one woman walked in one night, this beautiful shepherd. And I said, "Wow, it's beautiful. Is that full shepherd?" She said, "No, it's a full wolf." It was a wolf that they raised from a baby. And I said, "Oh, can I take a picture?" She said, He don't like that a lot. If you take a picture and see it, okay, so, but a wolf, you know.
I didn't know that was legal.
Yeah, it is, and they must have bought that ball out of the paper years ago and raised it, and wow.
I have a question. So, how do you all deal with like balancing and overstepping your boundaries? Because like sometimes you might want to do something or say something or ask a certain question, but then you know that you can't. So, what do you want to do?
I don't know, for me, when you walk in, you assess the situation like Nick said. You kind of look at the situation. Like, so if you walk in and you see lots of pictures, I find it okay to say, you know, when you look at them and you just make little general comments, and if they respond, then you go with it. Now, I also say to them, there's certain things they may want, and I say, you do know that I'm your volunteer, I'm not allowed to do certain things. So just make sure, and they'll say, yes, I know. Like if they need medication, you say, you know I'm not allowed to give you your medication, right? If it's sitting there and you can reach it, I can hand it to you. But you do know I'm not allowed to feed you or go get it. And so half the time they understand. And if you're doing a respite, the caregiver themselves, you tell them, as long as they understand that, and the patient will, depending on the state of mind they're in, they mostly understand. You know, they just want to talk for you, most of the time, if they can.
You try to keep it off you, I guess, a lot more on the patient.
It's about them, yeah, we don't talk about
What
you,
your
we
books
talk
all
about
tell you,
them.
but sometimes
Yeah.
seem to do.
A week now, I was there all day today. He has a situation, he had a transplant, I think he has a liver something, but he's going. And his doctor just simply said, we can't do anything else for you, call hospice, go home. Just like that. But he can get up and go and do, but he's a fall risk. So with him, I get a little nervous sometimes because he has a cane when he doesn't want to use it. So when he gets up to do things, I say, okay, fine, I'll walk with you. You know, just like that. And it's like, gently I'll say, where's your cane? Where's your... But he is fully coherent. He knows he's just sitting back and waiting. And I say, go ahead and live your life. But when I'm with you, you know, we need to do a few things as long as I'm with you. So if he's gone to his room for a little while, I say, are we still there? You know, and he'll answer me, and we talk about it and laugh, and we get by. You know, but when they have everything going for them, it's hard, because it's hard for them too, and I try to talk about it with them. Tell me how you're feeling. Just tell me whatever. Vent. Whatever you're feeling that you can't tell your wife, just go ahead, tell me. You know, because there are things that he hasn't yet said to his wife, he'll tell me. So, and I don't tell his wife, I just let it talk. You know, tell me he may want to tell her eventually. So those are the little things sometimes you just go with the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's a kind of a lot easier said than done, but you'd be surprised when you get in there. You know, you have your wits about you, and you know kind of the situation, how to diffuse things. Always, you know, kind of make the rules clear. You know, and I never kind of, you know, wishy-wash things away and try and beat around. That's what I find is the best way, and they usually respect that. I've never had a situation where, you know, I've had some, you know, contesting what I was saying. And another thing, I didn't want to bring out the picture thing, like don't, you know, walk in there and, you know, use your environment to make a conversation, because that's a great way to connect with a patient, but, you know, and you can't say something wrong, you know, you really are there for them, and they know that, and they appreciate that, and the caretaker appreciates that. You're doing an amazing thing for them. You can't feel bad, you know, if something like that happens, you know, you kind of just brush it off and know what you're really there for, and know what you're doing. So don't take that and don't want to ask about that photo or something like that. You know, be yourself when you're there. You'll do the right thing.
Nice to see a male in this class. There's not many of us around volunteering. Nice to see you.
Zach, why don't you tell them why you're here?
So I want to go to medical school as well.
Really?
Yeah, I graduated from college in 2015, and so I worked in the palliative care program up at school for 3 years, and so I've had some exposure to the dying process, and I wouldn't say it's a process I necessarily enjoy, but I respect it, and I'm comfortable in that environment, so I wanted to continue working, volunteering, and giving back, so.
So he'll be doing midgets.
You signed up for that, didn't you? You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, he did sign up for vigils. So he'll go through the next training class, maybe with Dan. I don't know. You gotta be ready. I mean, you know if you can do it or not.
Right.
If you're peaceful, you know. We'll never send you into a circumstance that's an unmanaged symptom or something weird with a vigil. We expect a peaceful death when we ask volunteers to go in there. That's our expectation. We have nothing to give us any other clue otherwise. That's the only way we would ask volunteers to come in.
I wouldn't mind next class, I think I might be ready for that, probably ready.
What else you guys got for us?
Is there any advice you guys would give on things like not to do or say?
I'm sure Jackie's giving you all of
I heard a few things.
Go for it.
Any like experiences you guys have maybe had, or just share, give advice.
A lot of the families will ask you how did you get involved in it, and once you share that, like everyone's got a little touch with somebody, and they sort of put you on oh yeah, what it's like, sort of. And so, I don't tell them, I've had cancer 4 times, I don't tell them that. Although, if somebody's dying of one of those cancers and one of their family members is talking to me, I might share with them at the point, the family member, that I had that happen, if they get on your identity wave, it seems to help them a lot, it seems that because they're nervous too about you coming in, even every time I go see my buddy, he stares at his badge a little bit, I think he keeps looking at that hospice thing down there, thinking, boy, he's here, I'm going out of here.
Now you gotta wear your shirt when you go see him too.
What?
Now you gotta wear your
He's
shirt.
gonna be 100% he's gone. He's like, it's today, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if
You
I woke
brought
up
the
and
shirt?
saw someone standing there with this on, I go, wow, bring me home, brother. But I haven't worn the shirt. They didn't tell me to do that. Am I supposed to do that?
When you go into facilities, yes.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Homes is the only place you don't have to yet.
I've not done that. I've been there just so that they can be in the next room doing something else. And what I do, if that happens, I chat with them first for a few minutes and then say, go do what you need to do, and I'll just sit here with so-and-so. And they'll come in and check, but I've never had one that's been fussy that I would get to the point of, okay, may I just go home and leave you to do what you're doing? But no. I think they're all just wanting and happy that you're there. They're a little nervous and concerned, but the hospice has a good relationship, so a good they know about hospice. They come highly recommended, so since we all have background checks and so forth, I think they're comfortable to just leave you in your home and go where they're going, or sit outside, whatever it is you're choosing to do.
I know that was the feeling our family always had with the volunteers. It was like they were, they had all the credentials and yeah, we didn't worry about it.
Yeah.
Most the caretakers too, when I come in, they go out and do any kind of like grocery shopping or anything like that. They would give them a break. And I've only had one caretaker come in, and while I was sitting there, and they were kind of talking like the patient couldn't hear them, couldn't understand them in front of me, and I was sitting right there with the patient, and that was kind of when I got a little irritated, and we just walked out and made sure that we started talking about that stuff out there. But she trains you for everything, you know what's right and wrong, and whenever you got a gut feeling like this doesn't feel right, you know. So.
Did you ask them like, hey, can we take this conversation outside, or?
I was kind of I wasn't like really like abrupt about it. I kind of just like, do you mind, if we go out, but I didn't want to start any kind of competition or any animosity between us. So yeah, but it flowed. It kind of was easy.
Last week I had a little sad. A good friend of mine wound up in here about 10 days ago. The family was here, so it's a little sad when you see somebody you know real well, They're sort of coming out and asking you things that you got to be a little guarded, that you let the nurses, can't they have a little food, can't they have this, That's when I delegate out to, you got to ask the nurse about it, because they want to feed their loved one, They don't really feed them here through conscience, they just even water they might not have for 4 or 5 days.
Do you guys get a lot of people like asking you like medical questions?
Some of them do at the front desk, they'll come up and just say, you think we guys said, I can't answer that, you gotta go talk to the nurse because, they're looking for some better advice. They might have already heard what they don't want to hear, so they're asking you something.
Can you just give me a different answer?
That's all, yeah. I don't think they deliberately mean it, but they're nervous, they're scared, they're sad. A lot of what was taught here is there, but a lot of what they teach here is very scary. And then once you let the climate take over, it's but it keeps her down going, she's got to tell us, right? But it's amazing how it flows. You guys get more action than I do with the patients.
Dan, you were talking about how you get to know these families and you know these relationships with them and you know that you're not going to see them again. How do you all get sad knowing that like you're going to be with this patient this week and then you might not see them next week? And like if you do get sad about it or if you like create these boundaries where you're like, okay, well I know what to expect. How do you deal with the sadness or like how do you cope with, because you're caring people. And like I could tell when you were talking about how like the volunteer work that you do, that you care about these people. So how do you kind of detach?
You gotta just, I think I dealt with it really early on, knowing that I'm never gonna probably see these people again. So I give it my 100% all when I'm with them, and you just sort of realize that I'm not gonna see them anymore. Maybe I'll see them at the store. They might not remember anything I've said, but if they remember something, it's different. You gotta just, I don't think about it as much as you just said, but you're right. It's just, when I leave here, I try to leave it here. I'm just too praying for the people that I just saw, But I'm sure you guys do.
And I know, I think too, I haven't gotten one of those emails lately, but they have a session here that if you do feel that way, you can call Jackie or Lenny or Whitney or somebody and talk it through with somebody. I've never attended one of those, so I'm not really sure how it works. But
What is it called?
it's a care for you to volunteer.
Oh.
If you needed to.
Oh, I see.
Debrief, go
Debrief
over,
yourself.
yeah,
Oh,
meet
bereavement?
with one of us or one of our guides or one of our counselors.
Yeah.
And just
Absolutely.
talk you through
They're
it.
there to hear you.
Yeah.
They're there to walk you through. They're available to volunteers as well. Regina's one of mine. When Regina, you met her, I mean, she's one of the first people that I go to, like, talk me through this, So, they're sitting for you.
And I think also it's kind of something coming in to, you're going to be a hospice volunteer, you're going to be around that kind of stuff. So I think you kind of have the underlying feeling that you can handle that and you can deal with those kind of situations. They are tough, but I think that's kind of part of the reason why you guys can do this and be here. You've got a good hold of reality, and this is a process of life. And everyone's going to go through it.
What else is nice too, I've had several people that ask me, what is hospice? Some people don't know that if you have a loved one that's going down, they have no one to take care of them, that you can ask your hospital to put you in contact. They don't know this exists, a lot of people. And it's a wonderful, like I live alone, so if I got cancer or something again, I'd probably wind up in a place like this, because who's going to take care of them, But if you don't know it's there, it's amazing how people ask you, your friends I'm talking about, But we try to carry the message more in getting out to these these fairs, but people sort of don't want to walk around the booth sometimes. They come up,
Scary.
oh, yeah, what I'm talking about, oh, all right.
It's like you're jinxing them.
Right.
Y'all got anything else? This is your chance.
Okay, I actually got another one. Okay.
Go for it, anything,
So-
they're here for you.
Okay, so before, because I know when it comes to even the orientations, I come in here feeling one way and I leave so refreshed and like, just like with a new perspective. So how do you all feel, like how do you, before you go into, I don't know if you volunteer for 4 hours or whatever it is that you feel before, and then how do you notice that difference when you leave? Like what is the difference? Or do you feel anything at all, like after you leave?
it's hard actually sometimes when you leave. You're not always going to have a visit where you're like that was an amazing, rewarding experience. I think that comes later. That comes with time and experience. You need to process actually kind of how these people go through, the dying phase. It's not something you're going to experience every day, and it's a different. They're going through a lot of different thoughts. So I think it is hard sometimes, and you got to sit on it and you got to think on it. And you kind of once you kind of synthesize it and get through it, it starts to come together, and you're okay with it.
So you find yourself thinking about it after, you left?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think it makes me kind of contemplate what I want out of life more. These people are at the end stage, and you sometimes get to hear, oh man, I wish I would have done this, or I should have done this, It's some deep thinking that you will go through, how you want to spend your time and what's really valuable to you.
It's a
That's
question
exactly
asked.
what I wanted. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, me too.
You contemplate your own, and your values may change. Your actions may change. It's really good for you.
It's just, like Nick says, when people ask me that question, I say, I'm not happy with what I do, I just feel good. I guess you feel good to the fact that, number one, you got out of your comfort zone. You did something for a fellow human being, whatever it might be. And to realize the opportunities we have that possibly just one little word or one little smile can make a difference on someone's face, whether it's a patient or the family or their kids. It's an opportunity for me. And to give back, I guess, is what I've taken a lot out of life, but to give back. So that part makes you feel good, but the sadness of not seeing those people again, I miss it a little bit, I'll get in the car and put a ZZ Top to
And it all goes.
Rosemary, is there anything you want to add to?
No, it's pretty much the same thing. You do contemplate your life. You do. And I find, because I've lost both my parents now, my mom most recently, and I look back at it and I'm thinking, to know what I know now, it's like I should have been there then for her too. So you go through that little phase. It doesn't last for a long time, but you do reevaluate certain things. You really do. And when you go back to the same person or another visit, you kind of take that with you. So your mindset is a little bit, okay, let me make sure that this person gets some value out of my time here. But it helps you. I think it helps you more than it helps them. I mean, we know it helps them, but it does a lot for you.
That's what everybody keeps saying.
It does. It's a weird thing, but it does. It's not like you feed the homeless, you make beds, you do this. But something about that process, just sitting there with them, it does something different.
It takes a while to
Which is
realize
a great
that.
thing. Yes,
It really does. It doesn't happen overnight.
I think it was in the first video we watched, and it has stuck is, I think it was a doctor that said that death is really not, it's just an opportunity to love. And it's just an opportunity to love. And every time when we're coming here or whatever, you leave, you contemplate, you say, did I love in that situation? And it's all good. And it's all good. And it's just, it does have you evaluate like, okay, I'm really grateful and life is kind of short, Life could, so it daily just kind of how am I living my day, and I just think this is like the greatest thing in the world. The experience that I too had over there, it was joyous. There was that last breath you guys talk about, the nurses must have thought we were kooky because Dad kept taking a breath and he died. We just crumbled and, you go through that. Then you breathe again. And this went on like 3 or 4 times. Finally, and I had some little bells going, and my brother looks over at me and goes, he made me put away the music and the bells. He said, just when I came in, they said, just stop. So we turned off the peaceful music, and my dad kept coming back. So my brother looks over and he starts laughing. He goes, whatever the heck you're on, give it to me. Hysterically. We're like, Dad, there's no more Copenhagen in the world. You can go. It's okay. But that experience was so joyous. And when that happened, I said, I want that again. I want that peaceful, the whole process was so peaceful. And I said, the only regret is I didn't know. I thought hospice was,
Yeah.
you know, I thought they should get hospice when they're ready to go. And
They
we
die
missed
here,
a
Kathy?
real opportunity for family healing.
Did they die here, your folks?
They did, yes, both of them.
And they have a book over there. Do we have it in the training that they give to family members in there? It's a book about dying. It's unbelievable. It's almost right on the money. It's about a 7-page booklet that they give these families called Blue Book. Wow. It nails it. It's just, like you say, the breaths and
But it's so, when, did you guys, how many people have you, the vigil thing is, so you've sat with?
I've sat with a few. One,
Yeah.
two, maybe about 4, but I've only had.
Close. Like Bill?
Send in
No,
Bill.
it's you.
Angel of Death.
That's his nickname, the closer. I don't know what it is.
wow.
He does so many vigils though, and he's usually there for hours like you.
Hours, yeah.
So it's more likely it happens on his shift.
So.
It's just a joke
It's
between
just-
us.
Oh, but it's so
It's
real.
a good thing you get to that point that you can laugh about it, you can talk about it, and you're not crying, and it's just another day. It's something that's going to happen. So, but it's always a good feeling. Being sad and
Oh,
feeling
for
sorry for
yourself,
them.
yeah.
Well, yeah, my dad died forever ago when I was in high school, but my mom, my sister was caring for her, and it was one of those moments she thought she needed to go to the hospital.
This is very important, and a lot of it you heard tonight. But we are going to read every bit from here through the rest of the book because it all sums it up, puts it together, and will hopefully answer a lot of your last questions that you have. The first visit, I know we talked about this a lot, Danielle. The first visit to the patient's home is always hard. Will they like me? Will I be able to help? What will I do? These and other such questions are natural. Just remember that at these times that you've been selected to serve as a hospice volunteer because people experienced in the field have confidence in you. Plunge in, taking with you an attitude of openness and receptivity to the needs of the patient and family to whom you have been assigned. They will let you know what they need, and you in turn will let them know what you can offer. You heard Rosemarie state, here's what I can do for you, and here's what you know I cannot. Our volunteer coordinators are very good at telling caregivers, please make sure that your loved one has a clean change of clothes, diapers, whatever it may be. We do tell them that. Please make sure that there's no medicines that need to be given while the volunteer is there. We are not allowed, our volunteers cannot do that. Please make sure that they've had ample enough to eat or drink, or set something out that I can set close to them, but no, I cannot feed them. We tell the caregivers everything. So if you feel like you need to reiterate it when you get there, if you feel like they're a little cloudy, oh, could you, this is what I can do, and I know your volunteer coordinators told you, and this is what I can't do. You set the boundaries. We've already told them, but they could have forgotten.
So if they just set out this,
Mhm.
and they say they can eat this,
Mhm.
we can help them eat it, or we
Mm-mm.
can't even do that?
You may not assist them eating or drinking. I
Okay.
cannot do this to Amanda.
Okay.
Amanda has to be able to pick it up herself and to feed it to herself or have herself drink it. You can bring it to them and set it here. It's as far as you can go. All right, very clear? Okay, and you in turn will let them know what you can offer. The relationship unfolds step by step in a very natural way. Here are some guidelines that may help. Amanda, can you read the first paragraph?
Yeah, so be yourself. Aside from modifications in behavior to assure the comfort of the patient, i.e. quietness, less talking, more listening, conscious attentiveness, etc., the volunteer should relate with the same personality he or she displays in any other situation. People who are ill appreciate being treated naturally, and in this way are reassured that their illness has not set them apart any more than in the obvious ways. Relate to the patient, not the illness.
And I think you heard that tonight too. I mean, don't be sad because they're dying of cancer. Relate to them as you would another human being, okay? oh, I'm so sorry, you're so sick. They don't want to hear that. They know they are. They're on hospice.
I remember sitting at my brother's bedside, he looked up at me and he goes, could you please quit looking at me like I'm dying?
Yes.
I think, but you are.
But they're human beings who want normal interaction for a change that they're going to get from a volunteer. Zach, can you read the second paragraph, please?
This holds true for family members as well. The volunteer role is as a supporter, not expert or authority. You are not expected to know all the answers. It does not take long to clarify for family that medical and technical questions can be best answered by the nurse and physician, and that you are there to facilitate this communication and to provide other, less technical support. The role definition comes about most easily when the volunteer feels comfortable from the beginning, just being him or herself.
And communication with the team. Katie?
The importance of clear communication between nurses, nurses' aides, counselors, chaplains, and volunteers cannot be overemphasized. As a team, you can be of great help to one another and to the patient family by maintaining regular contact and keeping one another current with what is going on. Don't be afraid to take the initiative in establishing this relationship. It is important to establish this relationship early so that a strong bond can be established before the patient-family situation comes to a crisis. Exchange schedules and appropriate phone numbers with team members and clarify mutual expectations with one another at the start. A working relationship is essential to maintaining continuity and stability as well as for providing quality care.
Volunteers are part of the hospice team, not a member of the family. Okay? Communications with the family. Kathy?
It is your responsibility to state clearly to the family and volunteer coordinator what you can and cannot offer in terms of time and availability. This will prevent awkward and possible painful misunderstandings at another time. It is helpful to ask the family and volunteer coordinator to outline their needs and expectations at the beginning, with the understanding that these may change as the patient's conditions change, and to indicate how you can help fill these needs, given your own commitments. When calling the patient caregiver, always press 67 before dialing the phone number so that they do not have your phone number. Do not give out your home phone number.
Okay, that is actually star 67. Before you go to your patient's home, if you're doing a home visit, we'll ask that you give them a call. Serves two purposes. First of all, reminds them that you're coming. They may have forgotten. They've got a lot going on. I'm coming tomorrow at 2. Just want to know just want you to have a voice with who's coming. So it does, the second thing is it does introduce you. Very small conversation. We don't need you to say, how was your day? What did you do today? Yada yada. My name is Jackie. I'm your volunteer. I'm scheduled to be there tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Has anything changed? Okay, I'll see you then. Done. Okay? That's all you have to do. But we don't want them to have your phone number. So hit star 67 and then 407, yada, 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 yada. Star 67 before you dial any phone number, and they cannot see it on caller ID. Okay? Dependability. Jennifer, could you read that, please?
To people in crisis whose lives are subject to so much unpredictability, it is essential to know that you can count on someone or something. Never offer more than you know you can deliver. The life of a seriously ill person has little variety and few distractions, and therefore each outside contact assumes larger than usual proportions and importance. What may be a minor part of your week may be the single event that the patient has been eagerly awaiting for days. It may also be an opportunity for the primary caregiver to have some private time away from the responsibilities of patient care. Dependability applies to all areas of volunteer.
If something comes up and all of a sudden you can't be there, please let us know so we can either call the family and let them know there's been an emergency or reschedule, whatever the case may be. We understand things happen. We understand traffic accidents, flat tires, yada yada, but don't just show up late and think.
Remember that your function as a volunteer is to meet the needs of your patient family rather than your own. In most instances, this means listening more than talking. It may mean listening to the same stories over and over again, stories that, for whatever reasons, satisfy a need of the patient or family member in the telling. It may mean listening non-judgmentally to outbursts of anger, frustration, and resentment which serve to release tension. You may even be the target for some of these negative feelings. Don't take it personally. People under severe stress often act inappropriately.
And confidentiality then?
Yeah, references to the patient family by name should be confined to contacts with the hospice team, either individually or at meetings. Information of extreme confidentiality divulged by a patient or family member should not be shared in a group setting unless it bears directly upon the designing of a care plan. Such information may be shared with the individual members, however, if needed for the peace of mind of the volunteer. At no time should a volunteer promise not to tell anyone any piece of information alluded to by a patient or a family member. It's for the protection of both the patient and the family and the volunteer that the volunteer be allowed to use his or her discretion as to whether information needs to be passed along to an appropriate team member.
Any questions on that? You've heard it repeatedly. Physical contact, this is important.
Some people like to touch and be touched, others don't. It is helpful if you can be flexible with the issue yourself so that you can cue in on the needs of those you are serving. In most instances, patients welcome hand-holding and other appropriate physical gestures as ways of communicating, caring, and connection without necessity for tiring conversation. Family members, too, often respond to a hand on the arm or across the shoulders as a gesture of, "I'm here, I care." It goes without saying that this dimension of the relationship evolves naturally with the passage of time and the intensity of events. Be open. Do what feels right. Again, your comfort or discomfort will communicate itself clearly, so it is important to be yourself. Share the hospice hug.
We do share the hospice hug. I hugged Nick and Rosemary. It's just what we do. I've gotten to know them over a period of time. It feels comfortable for both of us. But don't walk in someone's door and say, "Hi, I'm your volunteer." Again, do not date it, just sign it. Underneath where it says print your name, please go ahead and print your name. What you're going to do when you're finished with your volunteering, you're going to call your coordinator and say, "Okay, I was with Mary Smith, I got there at 9, I left there at noon, I did make that phone call, and it took me 30 minutes round trip, 15 there, 15 home." You're just going to do this over the phone. Like Dan said, he does it in the car as soon as he leaves. We're going to fill this in for you. You may be seeing Mary Smith 3 times a week. I can use the same form all those times, okay? Plus, I can make copies of this for every other patient that you've seen. This eliminates the need for you to have to turn these in weekly, which we weren't getting them a lot from volunteers. We'd have to beg them to bring them in. This eliminates that. How these used to be turned in, and could be if you're uncomfortable with signing, you could walk them in and deliver them to us. You could fax them into our fax line, or you could either email them in with a secured email, or you could just put them in the mail with an envelope. That's kind of how you can do it. We'd prefer you just let us have your signed copy. We'll make Xeroxes, and we'll use the same thing over and over and over again. Saves you from having to document. Okay, we're assured that we can get documentation if we do it. And I'll take those up from you. Don't mind passing them in.
So we would just have to tell our coordinator?
That's all you gotta do is make a simple phone call. You do not have to document anymore. Your coordinator will do it for you.
On both ends, I'm sure.
Tell me. Makes it a lot easier for us. Okay, the next section talks about little things that mean a lot. And we're going to read through this. Is it your turn, Danielle?
Yeah. Your personal grooming and manner of dress can affect a patient's mood. Color and attractiveness can help lift the spirit. Perfume or aftershave lotion are not allowed in the HOTC's dress room. These can be an irritant to people on medicine.
Okay. A positive attitude and a pleasant expression mean a lot. This doesn't mean a phony cheerfulness or an overly bright chattiness, but merely a clear message of caring and attention. Cards and flowers can brighten a room, but again, call your coordinator if you want to bring them, okay? Let us get the okay from the family that it's okay for you to bring anything. Sometimes, again, not talking, but sitting with the patient and letting them know you care by being there is the greatest gift of all. Okay, so now we're on our dress code policy. We do have a dress code policy as you are representing Hospice of the Comforter in our community. First and foremost, you'll have your name tag. Once you finish with your TB, give me all your paperwork, and everything's cleared, your volunteer coordinator is going to say, hey, come in, I'd like to meet you, and we're going to get you tagged. Okay, at the same time, and that's done right here downstairs. I'm going to pass this out, but I do want to go over a little bit of it with you. It's yours to keep, but some points I want to really key in on. It is Florida, we live in a hot state, we all get that. But if I let you wear shorts, guess what's going to happen? Somebody's going to wear those shorts that were too short. We don't allow shorts, okay? Sorry, it just has to be a blanket rule. No jeans. Hate to say that too, but I can't guarantee you that your frayed, bleached out jeans look like crap to a family. It could be offensive because the hole might be in the wrong place. Okay? Sorry, but we have to say no jeans. Hate to do that to you. Use your best judgment with the length of the skirt that you may wear. We don't want anything that could be revealing. Again, your best judgment with the tops that you ladies may wear. We do not want you to bend over and be able to see cleavage. Okay? I'm sorry I have to say all this, but you guys have seen how I've been dressed. It's normal, it's casual, it's comfy. I mean, do the same thing. I don't want you to dress up. I want you to be you. But again, you're representing Hospice of the Comforter. No jeans, no shorts. Use conservatism, if that's a word, if you can. We are relatively conservative here. No big wild jewelry, no dyeing your hair pink, no purple. You know, just be normal. We ask that you don't wear any long necklaces when you're visiting patients that could be grabbed, broken. Same with hoop earrings. Be very cautious of those. It could be grabbed by a patient inadvertently, rip your ear off. We don't want that to happen to you. Don't wear scrubs, please. That can be misconstrued that you are a medical personnel. Don't wear any scrubs. They're going to think that you have more here than volunteering. Any questions about any of that? The shoes. I love sandals. We live in Florida. I get that. Not too many people want to see your toes. We ask that you wear some kind of shoes that cover your toes. That's also for your protection as well. You won't see any of our staff wearing open-toed shoes either. It's for your own protection. I don't care if you wear tennis shoes, okay? As long as it covers your toes. Tennis shoes are awesome. Whatever you think that's comfortable. Again, no scents. That means no aftershave, no cologne. You won't smell it here in our offices. And we also don't know if anybody in the family that you're going to visit or the nursing home has any allergies. And I think you know as a person, and I do, when I feel sick and I don't feel good, I don't want to really smell anything. Sometimes it can bring that nausea back up. So be very cautious, very plain, very you, but again, very plain. Love your personalities, love to see you, but just try to stay within those boundaries. If you have a question on
artificial does that mean so artificial nails can't be worn?
that's for more.
That's for clinical.
That's for our clinical staff.
Got it, that makes sense.
That's for those people who are doing the bandaging and, you know, catheterizing, things like that, that we don't want them to wear those.
You also said your jeans, right?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Because I can't be assured that your jeans aren't cut up, frayed, and basically don't look good. I'm sure they look fine. You've dressed fine while you were here. But if I let you do it, I have to let everybody do it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just.
Don't dye your hair purple.
I saw one of my students had a really bright blue today.
And you wanted it, didn't you?
No, I told them I'm so grateful that looks good on you. They're like, well, your gray doesn't work. I said, I know, I'm getting it fixed, but we'll just, it's not going to be.
That wasn't nice.
Oh, my students are not always nice. I'm the oldest, ugliest person on the earth today. I said, have a nice day. What's your next period? Bye.
Yeah, see you later.
I said, you gotta go.
Just use your best judgment. I have no problem with the way any of you have dressed since you've been here, but just use your best judgment again, okay? The name tag, do not wear it around your waist, please. That's the last place I want to be looking when I want to know what your name is. Okay? I don't want to look down there. Your name tag stays up here. You'll get that lesson again when you get your name tag. Don't be wearing it around here. Okay? I think that's the most awkward thing in the world. I mean, come on. What's your name, Amanda? I can't see it. Can I get a little closer? I mean, come on. Use your common sense here. It goes up on the left-hand side. And I keep my name tag in my car so I don't lose it. And maybe you do too? Yeah, as soon as I get off work, it goes right in my little glove thing. That's so you don't not show up without your name tag on. Okay? And it will have your picture on it and your name so your patients and families can see that you're legit. All right. Any questions about any of that? No? Okay, let's get to the hints. Number 1, keep Hospice of the Comforter's phone number and address handy. If you need my cards, I've put them here, okay? For you guys to get back with me the papers that you haven't gotten back, your TB, yada yada. I'm going to need you to get back in touch with me with all that. But keep that emergency number handy, that 379-0311. Keep that number somewhere handy on every, I'd put it in your phone if I were you. That way you've always got it. Read and review the patient packet with signs and symptoms of death. I've given you guys the handout with signs and symptoms of approaching death. I've also given you food and hydration sheet too for your references. Number 3, remember to be safe and call first if you have any questions about care. Number 4, ask for gloves if you need them. I don't see any circumstance where you would need them, but if you do, let us know. If you see that you're going into a place and for some reason you need them, let us know. Keep wet wipes or antibacterial hand wash in your car. You should have that in your car already anyway. Specifically use it before and after you visit your patients. Vicks Vapor Rub under the nose diminishes strong odors. If you've been to this home before and there's a strong urine smell from the cats or whatever, a little bit of Vicks right here does wonders. You won't smell anything but
Just
the Vicks.
a regular Vicks you use to
Yeah,
put
just
on
a
your kids?
dot on your nose and that's what you'll smell.
Does that help with the nursing home smell?
Yes, absolutely.
Because that was the only, I said, I take the smell.
Yeah, just a little dot right here. Works. You'll want that later on in life too, I'm sure, that little hint. Okay, so remember the importance of reporting back to your volunteer coordinator after your first service is rendered. We want to know how it went. We want to know how your first time out there was. We really do. We want to know if you were nervous, if you were scared, how was it? Do you want to keep doing that? Do you want to switch to something else? Were you back for it? I mean, you're back, whatever. Let us know, okay? We do want to hear about it. Keep current records of your volunteer services and the time you gave. And again, it's essential because we're funded by whom?
Medicare.
Medicare, thank you. Okay, so again, we do have to have your time documented. Read communications from Hospice of the Comforter. They may not always come from your volunteer coordinator. It's important to stay current. This is how we're going to let you know the next party, the next vigil volunteer training. This is how we're going to let you know that your TB is about to expire and you need to get it done again. This is how we're going to let you know all the goings on here. We put out the monthly newsletter, you saw that. So do read stuff that comes from us. It's imperative nearly the end of the year when we send out that survey that you evaluate how you've done. That has to be in your file. When we get audited, it has to be in your file. So at the end of the calendar year, we're going to send you a survey, even if you're not here anymore. Please fill it out and send it back, okay? If you sense rejection, try to understand that the patient often has many reactions to being helped by a stranger. You can usually change a patient's manner toward you with time and with a calm, unhurried, and gentle attitude. If you find you cannot, consult with the volunteer coordinator. Strive persistently to show your care and concern. Points to remember when you visit a Hospice of the Comforter patient. Amanda, be yourself.
Pay attention.
Wear your badge.
Be reliable, keep your commitment unless there's a real emergency.
Accept the patient and family wherever or whoever they are.
Ask questions.
Avoid judgments.
Communicate clearly.
Be receptive to what is.
Expect the unexpected.
Know it's okay to be silent.
Use objects in the room to start a conversation. For example, pictures, books, etc.
Do not give your phone number.
Never divulge patient information.
Shred patient information when no longer needed.
Fill out your time and activity documentation forms as soon as possible after each visit.
Keep healthy boundaries.
Never try to impose your religious beliefs.
Always ask for permission before touching.
Have a bag ready with essentials you may need during a 4-hour respite.
Don't give out advice of any kind.
You can call Hospice of the Comforter any day or time.
You are not a problem solver for the patient or family. You are a comforting presence.
Contact your volunteer coordinator with any questions, suggestions, or concerns.
And take good care of yourself.
Amen. All right, right now I want you to look at the paper that I placed at your table. This is one of the last forms that needs to be in your file, and it's a cultural information statement. And it coincides with Florida Hospital's beliefs and their values. And if you could just take a moment and read through that, and it'll need your signature on the back. Here next. A hospice volunteer is a person who, Amanda,
Has a willingness to serve where most needed.
Arrives on time and knows when to leave.
Recognizes and honors the importance of fulfilling regulatory requirements such as turning in patient care time and activity reports when due, promptly responding when it's time to renew TB screening, do background checks, or do annual performance self-reviews and satisfaction surveys.
Can listen to strongly expressed emotions without judging the person struggling to deal with those emotions.
Is willing to wash dishes, vacuum the rug, help with the laundry, pick up groceries, cook a meal, sit with the children, take a dog for a walk, and not dwell on it.
Is capable of being honest with him or herself and sensitive about being honest with others.
can listen to the same story over and over, sit in silence, and perhaps slowly learn to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable.
Reflects on each experience and learns from it.
Affirms life in the face of suffering and death.
Can bear the burdens of others without being overcome by them.
Self-confidence and the ability to trust others.
Has self-knowledge and the ability to grow and develop.
Respects the religious beliefs of others.
Can remain calm in a crisis.
Is a faithful presence, able to simply be there for others.
Knows how to comfort someone who is suffering.
Has a remarkably generous heart.
Understands that caring for the dying is sacred work.
Makes a tremendous difference in the lives of others.
Okay, the next page here is to be sure. To look into your heart and know that you really want to help other people. This is your code of responsibility. Amanda, you take the next one.
Be convinced. Do not offer your services unless you believe in the value of what you're doing.
Be loyal. Offer suggestions, but do not criticize.
Speak up. Contact your volunteer coordinator or direct supervisor. Ask about things you do not understand. Do not coddle your doubts and frustrations until they drive you away.
Be willing to learn. Training is essential to any job well done.
Keep on learning. Attend continuing educational opportunities. Know all you can about hospice and your assignment.
Be aware. Read your volunteer newsletter to stay current with the Hospice of the Comforter.
Welcome supervision. We will do a better job and enjoy it more if you're doing what's expected of you. Verify your role and responsibilities with the volunteer coordinator or your direct supervisor.
Be dependable. Report all activities to the volunteer coordinator and or your direct supervisor. Your word is your bond. Do what you have agreed to do. Do not make promises you cannot keep. Please say no when you need to.
Be professional. Represent Hospice of the Comforter. Follow guidelines and code of dress.
Be efficient. Document all the volunteer time and areas of service. Submit monthly to volunteer coordinator.
Be a team player. Find your special place on the team. Hospice philosophy involves teamwork.
Be yourself. You came here because you are a very caring person. Each person brings a very special gift to hospice, the gift of self. You are welcomed with open arms and a warm thank you.
Okay. The next two sheets we're not going to go over because